Good afternoon. My name is Arran Hunt. I'm a partner here at Stace Hammond and I head up the Migration Partners team. Today is 27th of July 2020 and today is the day where they release the new temporary work visas. And this is the visa which replaces the essential skill, the work to residence and I think 4 other work visa types all into one package. We're still waiting for the official rules to come through. We're hoping to have those last week. They haven't come through yet. We know the general rules, but the actual specifics in the operational manual as to how it's going to be applied, we're still waiting for those. Once we've got those, we'll send them through. We'll do a video about them, perhaps later today, if not tomorrow or a following day, depending when they come through. But as it sort of starts today, we're sort of hoping we'd have them by today, but we haven't. What we're going to do though is that we're going to do just see definitions. There's a lot of terms you'll hear me say in my videos. That we'll do a little video so to define to you what these terms mean, so that when you see our videos you can go, of course that's what EOI is, or that was what a PCC is, or that sort of thing. We do have the habit of using these terms, so I thought I'd just do a quick video so definitions. Now what I will do is that in the description of the video I will list out the definitions we're going to go through, so you can sort of, if you don't want to watch the entire thing, you can sort of scan through to the one that you want to hear as to how it means or how it works. Otherwise, watch the whole thing. Of course, like this video, it really does help get the word out there. Subscribe so you know the next video comes out, and tick the little bell so you get a little alert when the videos do come out. We do try to put out videos when there is big movements in immigration in New Zealand or in changes to the rules. As always, this is not legal advice. This is our take on what these terms mean, these definitions we're about to go through. If you want actual legal advice, go see an expert, go see a lawyer, and they'll be able to give you actual legal advice. This is not advice in itself. So first thing I want to go through is temporary entry visa. This is it's the whole definition between temporary entry visa and residence visa. They are sort of two very different types of visas. Now, temporary entry visa is a right to be in New Zealand for a fixed period of time. Now, it could be one entry or multiple entry, so you can come and go, or it could basically be you arrive, you leave, that's it. You must have one at all times unless you have residence or citizenship. So if you're in New Zealand, you must have a temporary entry visa, otherwise you are unlawful. Now, if you are in New Zealand on a temporary entry visa and you apply for another temporary entry visa and your current visa expires, you will be granted in almost all situations an interim visa. Now, this is a right for you to remain in New Zealand lawfully for up to 6 months while they process the rest of your application. Now, this does not occur if you have a residence-only application in place. So if you've got a temporary entry visa, say a work visa, you're applying for residency, and your temporary entry visa runs out, you will not get an interim visa. You must have an application for another temporary entry visa in place, otherwise you are in New Zealand unlawfully and your residence application will be stopped. So you definitely have to think of it that way. Of course, temporary work visa comes out today, 27th of July, this is today, the day it comes out. We're still waiting to find out exactly what's going to be in it. We've given you a few ideas in the last few weeks, but still waiting for the official wording. Now, partner visa. Now, partner visa is one that we'll often encourage clients to go for. It's the easiest, we think, the way to get a visa is through partnership. There is 3 kinds. There's visitor, work and residency. You must be living with the partner at the time of the application through to when the application is decided. So when you make the application, you must be living with your partner and you must stay living with your partner throughout that entire time. Now, the visitor visa under partnership is if you're travelling from outside New Zealand into New Zealand with your partner, and you plan to come to New Zealand for a short period of time. Typically, if you're living in New Zealand at the time with your partner, you'd go for a work visa under partnership. And of course, after 1 year living together, you can apply for a residence visa under partnership. Now, we often have people come to us saying that they've applied for a visitor visa under partnership to enter New Zealand to be with their partner, which that is just the wrong approach. If you must be with your partner at the time, so if you are overseas and they're in New Zealand, and you apply for a visitor visa under partnership, you're already going to be declined because you're not with your partner. That is the important thing. That situation, you go for a visitor visa general with a waiver to the Bona Fides, which we'll come to shortly as what Bona Fides means. If this is you, come let us know. We've had a number of clients come to us who have been in that situation and who've had multiple applications declined because it's the wrong visa to apply for and been given bad advice. Okay, so residency, often referred to as PR, but we'll come to what PR is. It isn't quite PR. Now, it's a right to remain in New Zealand forever. That's what you're sort of looking for, you're applying for. You may have a limit on how you can re-enter New Zealand. So typically with residents, if you get that through skilled migrant, or even through partnership, it will give a right to remain in New Zealand forever, but a right to re-enter for just 2 years. It means you can come and go out of the country. On the second anniversary, you must be within the country, because if you're not in the country on that date, then you can't re-enter, and your visa is null and void. So make sure that you are in New Zealand on the date your residence visa, your right to re-enter, expires. The visa itself does not expire while you remain in the country. So if you've been here, I have clients who come to me who have been in the country for 30, 40 years on a residency visa. They've never left and they are still New Zealand residents. There is no expiry unless you leave the country. Now PR, permanent residence, this is often where the confusion lies, is that permanent residence is the next step. So residency, you get that right to remain in the country forever, but it's that right to re-enter that the permanent part relates to. So if you become a permanent resident, it means that you can come in here, come and go as much as you want forever. Effectively, your visa actually sort of lasts as long as your passport does. When you get a new passport, you get transferred to a new passport, and then you then have another 5 or 10-year visa, and that keeps on going the rest of your life. So the permanent part is the right to re-enter New Zealand forever. The visa itself, the residency visa, is a permanent right to remain in New Zealand. That's that right to re-enter. That is the permanent part of it. So that is that. And of course, 5 years after you get residency, you can apply for citizenship in the great little black passport. Skilled migrant category residence visa. Now this is we talk about a lot recently because the pool draws are currently on hold. Now, often refer to this as an SMC. If you see my articles and I refer to SMC, this is what I'm talking about. It's a skilled migrant category. It's the most common way to residency through work. While you can do work to residence, that requires an accredited employer, which we'll mention in a moment. But skilled migrant is the more common way. I've written an article on this. I'll do a link in the description below to give you an idea as to the full steps in a lot more detail. But to give you a quick breakdown now, it's basically a two-stage process. First is the expression of interest, the EOI. This will be called an EOI, expression of interest. It's an online form you fill out. It calculates the number of points based on your age, your experience, that sort of thing. It's currently 160 points is required. You get 30 bonus points being out of Auckland, which is always a nice little bonus for some people. Every 2 weeks there's typically a draw, and any of those who are 160 points or more get drawn. Immigration New Zealand then look at their application, look at the document or the details provided and go, yes, that's correct, no, it looks fine. At which point they will send you an invitation to apply, and that's the ITA, invitation to apply. At that point you have 4 months to complete the documentation and provide it to immigration. So that's the birth certificates, employment agreement, proof of your qualifications, your experience, that sort of thing. When you actually send in that application after getting the ITA, that's when the application itself actually takes place. The expression of interest is basically you're asking for permission to apply. It's not until you actually make the application after the ITA that you're actually applying. Now once you submit that documentation and it goes to immigration and they check it through, if there's anything wrong they'll send it back to you, and you have to get sorted out and back to immigration, and they will take sort of 3 or 4 weeks to look it over to make sure that it's okay. So and that all in that 4-month period. So if you send it to them, there's an issue, they send it back to you, and it's taken 3 or 4 weeks for that to take place, and you've now gone past the 4-month period, the application is now void. So you must get it into them as soon as you can, just in case the documentation is incorrect. Or come and see us, we can give you a hand with that. Now once you get the application in there and they're okay with it and they've stamped it, they said yep, the application's in place, then they will then go into a queue. And that queue is currently taking a long time, about sort of 19, 20 months. So last I heard that on June 30th they were doing applications that had been made in December 2018. So it is sort of taking a long period to process. So yeah, you get in there and actually a long wait for it, but then of course, you get the great result of living here. Okay, now PCC, police certificate. You provide a police certificate from country of citizenship, places where you've spent a lot of time, just to show whether there's any convictions in that country. Of course, for the USA, you call it the FBI clearance, but it's still the sort of police certificate is basically what it is. One thing to remember is that in some countries have a clean slate legislation, which basically means if you get a certain number of years without a conviction, or perhaps if you're a child, your convictions is under a certain, say under 18, get ignored when you're older. In those countries, you of course no longer have that conviction. However, when you do the police certificate for immigration purposes, those convictions will still be shown. So if you ask about immigration, do you have convictions, and you have a conviction as a child in one of these countries, or it's a conviction that's been on the clean slate, sort of wiped clean in that country, you must declare it, because the immigration document will show that conviction. And if you don't declare it, you have then light immigration. So be very, very cautious then. If you're not certain, if you think you may have a conviction that you need to declare, but you might not need to, go and get advice. Be very, very cautious. Better to be honest with immigration, or be overly cautious or overly honest. And even say to them, look, here's a situation, I might have a conviction, can we talk about this? Better to do that than just to ignore it and be caught out lying to immigration. Now, this is Bona Fides. So Bona Fides is basically means whether you're being honest about your intention to be in or remain in New Zealand. So if you come to New Zealand on a visitor visa, Immigration New Zealand will be looking for you to leave at the end of the visa. If you came to New Zealand for the purpose of, on a visitor visa, for the purpose of actually you're going to try and get a job here, or you're going to try and arrange study here, or be with a partner, but you didn't sort of declare it, then you have your bona fides are incorrect, they're bad. So it's important that you get your bona fides right. If you declined one visa, such as a partnership visa, and then apply for a student visa, Immigration New Zealand got a question as to whether your study is genuine, or instead of you're applying for that because you want to be with your partner, your bona fides, being your intention to study, will be questioned. Now, the country of origin can also impact your bona fides. So if you are from a Western country, so if you're from the UK, the US, France, Germany, Japan, Immigration New Zealand will be more confident that at the end of your visa you will leave rather than remain in the country. If you come from a developing country, or a country that there is war in the country or nearby, Immigration New Zealand are going to be more suspicious about whether you would actually leave the country at the end of your visa. So that will also be a bona fides issue, whether they believe you and that you are being honest about your intention to come to the country and then to leave the country at the end of your visa. So make sure you show your bona fides to New Zealand, to Immigration New Zealand. If not, let us help. You can do that. There is ways we can sort of assist with that. Next one, Section 61. These are great visas. So basically, the Immigration Act requires, under Section 61, requires that you must have a visa. You must have a current visa in New Zealand if you are in New Zealand applying for another visa. You cannot be here unlawfully and apply for a visa. Straight away it will be declined if you go through the usual process. So there's the S61 team, and they're allowed, using the power of the Minister, to look at visa applications, people who are here unlawfully. Now, they don't have to be looked at. They can look at it and go, actually, no, we're not going to bother processing the application, and just decline it straight away. They can do that without even telling you why they've declined it. So you haven't got a chance to keep applying to them. They will just say no if you try that path. However, they are the ones to go to if we've had clients who have come to us saying, hey, my visa ran out last week, I didn't realise, I need to apply now. That's who you go to. The clients who have been in New Zealand unlawfully for a number of years, they come to us, that's who we go to. So these are the people that you go to when you're here without a visa. They are a reasonably good team, but they do have that right to decline, and they do have the right to not say as to why they declined. It can be kept a secret, and they can say what they want generally. So the best thing to do is make sure you keep your visa valid in the country. You can do the usual process and not have to go through that team. It's also a paper-based format rather than online, so it's a little bit slower in that regard as well. Now, of course, that's part of the, that's basically under immigration law. It's the Section 61 of the Immigration Act. The Immigration Act is what basically controls immigration in New Zealand. It's sort of the larger overall controlling set of rules, but they are very high level, not that sort of in detail. The operating manual, or the instructions as it often be referred to, that's where most of the rules exist. It defines that Immigration New Zealand is going to decide an application, what to look at, what they're looking for, how, what certain dates mean, how things are calculated. It is tweaked and changed every few months, possibly even during COVID, even more than that. And they'll often announce a change to the immigration rules or the immigration instructions, but usually not a change to the Act itself. The Immigration Act will stay the same for a number of years. The rules will change frequently. It's much easier to do it that way than to try and get government to keep changing the Act itself. If you ever see a reference to a letter, then a number, so A5.15 or R2.35 or something on that form, a letter, number, dot number, these are references to the operating manual. It's available online, you can go and check it out. It's free access to get to it. Just Google Immigration New Zealand Operating Manual and you'll see all the rules there. It's handy to know if you are trying to handle things yourself. Definitely need to go through that. Otherwise, you'll often see, if we did a cover letter for you, we'll be referring to this manual all the time. We'll refer to that more than we refer to the Act. The rules here are the important thing. As to what needs to be referred to. I think that was, and yeah, accreditation. We'll quickly mention here. Now, accreditation is mentioned for two parts. First thing is that those of you who know the work to residence application path, basically where you get a 2.5 year work visa. After 2 years you can apply for residency. Very similar requirements as to a skilled migrant, except that it has a higher, and now has a higher income requirement. Also doesn't have an English level requirement, so there's no need to show IELTS or any of the other tests, but it does require a higher pay. Also requires the employer to be accredited. It means that they've gone through a test with immigration and they've been seen as being a legitimate employer, which most employers haven't done that. There's only about 1,500 companies that have done that. However, in the next year or so, all employers need to have done some level of accreditation. So the way they're going now is that in a year's time, every employer will already have a filer immigration. The accredited employers who currently are there will be sort of held at a higher level. All the other employers will be a lower level accreditation, but it will need to still have a record at immigration. They're going to be more employer-led than employee-led when it comes to work visas in the next year. But we'll let you know when that comes through. I think that's it for today. We'll let you know when the new rules come through for the temporary work visas, which are supposed to come out today. I have a meeting to get to, so we're going to get this video finished and get out there. And hopefully this has been helpful, going through a few of the rules, how they work, what the terms mean. Any questions, let us know. And Kaha will be back with you soon, hopefully with those rules. All the best.